Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, last night, I have to say, I did lambast the Speaker, rather, because he laid in politically, basically accusing Donald Trump of being sexist and racist and homophobic and goodness knows what else. And I put forward the view that I thought he really ought to have been neutral on this. And I was quite pleased today to see that his equivalent in the House of Lords, Lord Fowler, had a bit of a go at him and said, you should not have done this without first speaking to me, because presumably, if the President was to speak, he would speak to both houses of Parliament. Bercow apologised to Lord Fowler for not telling him, but he most certainly didn't back down from his position yesterday. Here's what Speaker Bercow said today.
We value our relationship with the United States. If a state visit takes place, that is way beyond and above the pay grade of the Speaker. However, as far as this place is concerned, I feel very strongly that our opposition to racism and to sexism and our support for equality before the law and an independent judiciary are hugely important considerations in the House of Commons.
Well, there we are. He's not backing down one little bit, is he? And the question I'm asking tonight is, do you think he should stand down immediately? Has he overstepped the mark? And to get involved, you can call us on 0345 60 60 973. You can text us at 84850. Don't forget you can tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage and LBC, and you can watch the show live here from Brussels on LBC's Facebook page now. I have to say that I rather took the view that the Speaker of the House of Commons should be neutral, and that was why I felt yesterday he'd overstepped the mark. But don't take it from me. Let's get an expert involved, and I'm going to Craig Prescott, who was a constitutional law lecturer at the University of Winchester. Craig, good evening to you.
Good evening, Nigel.
Good evening. So tell me, should the Speaker be neutral? Enlighten us, please.
Most definitely. Certainly, I found Bercow's speech to be quite extraordinary, and I can't really think of a precedent where the Speaker has got involved in such a clear way and taken such a clear position on a subject that is of such current political controversy. The Speaker is essentially the chair of debates in the House of Commons, and in order to do that, your impartiality should be beyond question. And you have to think that, let's say there's a debate in the future about British foreign policy with America, and let's say you're an MP that supports Donald Trump, and you don't get chosen to contribute to that debate because it's the Speaker that chooses who speaks. You're going to think, well, is that because of my views, or is that just because I missed it? You're going to start to question some of the decisions the Speaker makes. And that's not a good position for the Speaker to be in, ultimately.
No, it's not, is it? It was suggested, Craig, to me earlier on today that he was behaving more like the Lord Protector than the Speaker of the House of Commons.
That's very interesting.
A bit strong, I know. But tell me, Craig, I mean, I'm asking the public tonight to ring in, to text in, to tweet in, to tell me whether they think this man now ought to go because he's broken a basic rule. And you've really rather confirmed that. But tell me, how could he be got rid of? What would the procedure be?
It's very, very difficult to remove a Speaker because, that's one way he gets his impartiality, because he's impartial from government, and government cannot just come in and try and remove the Speaker. Indeed, when the government tried to make moves in that direction before the 2015 election, it blew up spectacularly in the government's faces because backbenchers didn't like it. And the only way to really remove a Speaker is if the Speaker resigns himself and chooses to retire. And the last time that happened was when Bercow's predecessor, Speaker Martin, he resigned because of his involvement in the MP's expenses scandal, his own personal involvement in the scandal, which made his position untenable. And even that was very difficult. So it is, sorry to disappoint you in a way, but Constitutionally, it is quite difficult to remove a Speaker. It's the Speaker that's got to do it himself. I suppose if he thinks his position has become untenable, then he will, I would hope, do the honourable thing and resign. I don't think we're there yet, but if there's another incident like this, then I think the government has certainly sort of got Bercow's card marked, I think.
OK, so Craig Prescott, constitutional law lecturer at the University of Winchester, you've put Speaker Bercow on notice, and I thank you very much indeed for your contribution. Well, phew is all I can say, because I really sort of put my neck on the line saying the Speaker should be neutral, and Craig absolutely confirmed that. Is it time he went? Should he stand down immediately? However difficult it may be to get rid of him, he could, as a matter of honour and principle, stand down, and I wonder what Stephen in Maidstone thinks about that question. Stephen, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. Absolutely agree. I think John Bercow's position has now become completely untenable. I think he should do the honourable thing and step down at the earliest opportunity. I believe, there's a number of parliamentarians at the moment who could certainly fill that position, Jacob Rees-Mogg being one of them. And I'd like to see John Bercow step down at the earliest opportunity.
And Jacob, of course, would bring back all the ancient wigs and gowns and traditions, wouldn't he?
He would do. And, it's those ancient traditions, whether you agree with them or you disagree with them, which is one of the things which I think is missing. But ultimately, Nigel, what I'm interested to hear from yourself is, have you heard anything from Trump or Trump's team in response to John Bercow's comments?
They've said very little, quite wisely. They're letting this row play out. You've now seen what Lord Fowler has said. Donald Trump does, of course, occasionally send the odd tweet out when he has an opinion. But on this one, they've kept quiet. They're seeing how it pans out. They want this visit to happen. They want this trade deal to happen. They want to make NATO, somewhat reshaped and reformed, but with us working very closely with them. So they're not going to do anything, I don't think, that would risk that. And I have to say, I'm very pleased about that, Stephen. Let's see. But Stephen firmly of the view that Bercow ought to go. I'm speaking to you from the European Parliament, where there is no pretence at neutrality at all. In fact, the chairman, or the president, as it's known over here, of the European Parliament, not only gives political opinions, but actually takes place in votes. So when we're voting and pushing buttons for green lights or red lights, you can see how the president of the Parliament has voted. And the guy we had for the last 5 years, a guy called Martin Schulz, who never, ever, ever hid his views that the European superstate was marvellous, yesterday hit the lead in the opinion polls in Germany. He's ahead of Angela Merkel in Germany. But the point here really is that our Parliament, the mother of parliaments, this great respected institution, has always had a neutral speaker, and I'm afraid this guy has overstepped the mark. He should stand down, in my view. I wonder what Penny in Chelsea thinks.
Hello, Nigel.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, I definitely think he should step down. And I thought the Labour MPs acted absolutely disgracefully, hollering and shouting. It just made me squirm. And if he had anything about him, he should resign immediately.
Yes, I mean, the Labour Party are gripped with this anti-Trump hysteria. But he... Extraordinary, but he's the speaker, isn't he? He should be somebody that we respect and look up to.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, Penny, tell me, have you always been a sceptic about Bercow or not?
Yes, always.
Right.
I thought he was arrogant and totally, he wasn't impartial. He was no good for the job. But then I can remember Betty Boothroyd.
Yep. Yeah, and many others, of course, who were tremendous at the job, and Bernard Wetherill and others who, when they stood down as Speaker, were greatly respected. I have to say, Penny, one thing for John Bercow, he does like the sound of his own voice, doesn't he?
Does indeed, yes.
And it's all wonderfully theatrical. Lovely. Penny, thank you very much indeed for your opinion. And I have to say, I suspect there'll be quite a clear majority that do think Bercow's overstepped the mark. But if you think he's done the right thing, if you think we should politicise the role of Speaker, change Parliament fundamentally, please call 0345 60 60 973. And I'm going to go to Carlos in Crystal Palace. Carlos, should Bercow resign?
I think his position becomes difficult. He's putting the UK at odds with the USA on a subject that actually he's not in touch with public opinion. A survey by Chatham House discovered that 55% of Europeans in 10 countries support the Muslim immigration ban that was trying to be implemented by President Trump. So he's not in touch with public opinion, and he's making pronouncements that put the UK at odds with the USA.
Well, he's certainly doing that. In fact, he's being actually quite abusive, isn't he, about the president of the USA? And the poll that Carlos refers to, which has had almost no coverage at all, is done by Chatham House, so very reputable, and they show that across 10 European countries, 55% of people completely support Trump's ban, including in Poland, an astonishing 71% of people. So, Carlos, you know, I get what you're saying. There is this big gap between public opinion and, you know, many of our political class. But in a sense, the question here is Bercow not just being wrong politically, but frankly, I think, abusing his position as Speaker of Parliament. And so, Carlos, I assume that you would support him going.
Well, the point is here, he cannot make pronouncements that they are, only the government can make, because he didn't make an issue about welcoming or not welcoming a North Korean delegation.
Oh.
So he's open to receive North Korean delegations, but he's not ready to welcome an elected president of a democratic country.
So, Carlos, was I right yesterday to call him my hypocrite of the week?
Yes, absolutely so.
Well, I'm going to tell you more about the hypocrisy of Bercow in a minute. But for now, you're listening to Nigel Farage, live on LBC from Brussels. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
John Bercow putting the Burke in Bercow.
The Speaker is not the Foreign Secretary, he's not the Prime Minister, and he also can't speak for both houses, yet he sought to do so yesterday.
This is what speakers used to be like. Bernard Wetherell, he once famously said that, I don't think the Speaker is the star. Parliament should be a forum, not a stage. If only someone could tell that to John Bercow, who just loves the sound of his own voice, doesn't he?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Every weekday morning from 7, only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton, from a great night's sleep to the perfect breakfast included.
Now, the following information will only be of interest to more successful investors. I thought that might include you. You're obviously someone with a great track record and excellent liquidity who
could be drawn in by the flattery of an investment scammer. At the Financial Conduct Authority, we're committed to keeping you safe. So if you've been offered an unsolicited investment opportunity, be a scam-smart investor and check the FCA warning list of firms to avoid at fca.org.uk/scamsmart.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board. KLM Royal Dutch Airlines is pleased to announce imminent departures from London City Airport.
Booking a business trip or the dream holiday? KLM has started its own services from London City Airport, flying you from the heart of London to Amsterdam and the world. Tokyo, Shanghai, Lagos, Dubai, and many more. Book now at klm.com.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy your flight.
Right, I need to pick up the kids from school.
Let me.
Are you sure?
No problem. I might as well pick up dinner as well.
Wow, that would
And go and get the dry cleaning. And I could drop those bags off at your mum's.
But you never visit my mum.
Oh, come on. I see her loads. She was at the wedding.
Whatever reasons you find to come back, you'll earn Tesco Club Card points when you fill up at Esso. Many happy returns. Participating sites only. Terms and minimum spend apply. See esso.co.uk for details.
This is a live update for UK businesses. Right now, overseas buyers are looking for quality UK goods and services. Make your business visible around the world and help buyers find you through the government's free new online service. Start your export journey. Visit great.gov.uk.
The best place for sleepyheads is in their bridge bedding bed.
At Bridge Bedding, we have hundreds of beds and mattresses in stock from the biggest brands in the UK. We'll beat any price on a like-for-like basis and we'll deliver for free. So before you buy your next new bed, visit a Bridge Bedding Centre, Rectory Groveley-on-Sea, Upminster Road, Hornchurch, or online at bridgebedding.com.
The best place for sleepyheads is in their bridge bedding bed.
What is the longest tube on the London Underground? What is the collective name for a group of bears? What did Queen Victoria ban from her own funeral?
If you know, you have exceptional general knowledge. But at Hiscox, our insurance experts have chosen small business as their specialist subject. That's why more than 200,000 UK businesses rely on us to help provide the right cover. Hiscox, business insurance for the small and the brave.
Oh, and in case you were wondering, A, the central line, B, a sleuth of bears, C, the colour black.
Now, someone as discerning as you
could be drawn in by the flattery of an investment scammer. Be a scam-smart investor. Check the FCA warning list before investing.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Well, I've been asking the question tonight, should we get rid of John Bercow, or should he resign as a point of principle for overstepping the mark, for being abusive about the American president and saying that he should not be able to speak to both houses of Parliament? But I must declare an interest in this. I'm not neutral about Bercow. In fact, this bloke has driven me bonkers for years. So much so that in 2010, I thought it would be a terribly good idea to stand against him in the general election and on election day to go up in a light aircraft flying a banner in my bid to beat Bercow, which crashed to the ground and nearly killed me. So I have to confess to being a bit obsessive about Bercow. I don't like him very much. I think he genuinely has devalued the post of Speaker. I'm not sure he's even capable of being neutral. And back in 2013, he said, Bercow, that Eastern European immigrants have more aptitude and commitment to work than other British people. And he said that during an official visit to the Romanian Parliament back in 2013. And I said then his comments were outrageous because they breached traditional impartiality. So, you know, take it from me, I am not impartial in any way at all. But the real point about this, not only should he not stray from neutrality, but some will say he has to uphold our values. And in a sense, he was trying to play that card yesterday, wasn't he? He said, we don't like people who are nasty on grounds of race or sex or whatever it may be. Well, if that's the case, I want to know. I really do. Why, in September 2012, when Bercow was welcoming President Yudhoyono of Indonesia, he said, Mr. President, it is a huge pleasure as well as a considerable honour for me to welcome you. Well, you know, as some of you may know, in Indonesia, homosexuality is illegal, for example. Or why 2 months later, he welcomes the Emir of Kuwait, where women face constant discrimination, where marital rape doesn't even exist, where it's illegal to be gay, and where they ban Israeli Jews from entering the country at all. But when the Emir of Kuwait turns up, it's Your Highness. It is my privilege to welcome. I mean, and on it goes. Vietnam. He even had the North Koreans to tea in his apartment. He welcomes tyrants from all over the world. People who are racists, homophobes, anti-Semites. They're all welcome unless they're called Donald Trump. And that's why I think this man is an enormous hypocrite, a disgrace to Parliament, and the sooner he's gone, the better. Right, I've calmed down now. Elaine in Bracknell, what do you make of this? Has Bercow stepped over the line? Should he go?
Yeah, definitely. I think President Trump was voted in democratically, and he's done exactly what his mandate said, and he deserves the respect of the post that he holds now. And I don't think it's for Bercow to make my decision for me.
No, Elaine, I mean, I can't fight you, I can't argue with you, but the point I just made before you came on, you know, he welcomes all these people who do terrible things, and that's fine, but he doesn't like Trump, and says what he said.
That's
Do you
a
think
shame that he
maybe...
doesn't like him. That's a shame that he doesn't like him. It's not for him to speak for the rest of the people.
No, I wonder, Elaine, is he actually on the verge of resigning anyway? Is this his last big...
He doesn't speak for me.
he could be off to a very highly paid job somewhere, you know.
Well, he's a little man and he's got a wife that likes the papers.
Well, she's actually, to be fair to Sally, she's kept out of the papers a bit lately, hasn't she? But then I'm pretty weak ground myself on this week. So we'll leave it there, Elaine. But thank you, and I'll go to Ian in the Romney Marsh. Ian, has Bercow stepped over the line? Should he go?
No, he shouldn't. And for me personally, John Bercow, he does speak for me. I don't agree with Trump at all. I don't like the guy. His policies are quite abhorrent, but it's not really that I wanted to actually comment on, Nigel. It was actually yourself and the hypocrisy you just showed in calling John Bercow out to be quite abusive when you yourself actually stood up in the EU Parliament being really abusive to them. Well, you've done it more than once, but certainly the day after the referendum.
Abusive.
The reason you don't like John
Abusive.
Bercow is he doesn't agree with you and your buddy over there, over the pond.
Ian, Ian, hang on, Ian. I have been shouted at, shouted down. They even last week allowed the public gallery to heckle me. I have been called all the names under the sun, and all I've ever done, Ian, is tease them a little bit. I've never been abusive to them. Give me one example of where I've been abusive.
I saw your display, Nigel, the day after the referendum, when you stood up. That wasn't teasing. You was being, at best, you was being quite rude. At the end of the day,
how?
You know, what do you mean how? You knew. You standing up saying they'd never had a proper job in their lives, and
well, that was factual. Yeah. Well, that was factual. I mean, of course. I mean, we're dealing with career politics. Ian, look, Ian, I've pulled their leg. Of course I have. And it's been a bit theatrical over the years at times. And I get that.
It doesn't help us in our position. And the reason
so when they call me...
Can I just... The reason a lot of people are getting upset about this is actually because they know, the Brexiteer camp, I mean, that we seem to only have the Americans up our sleeve as a card, as a major sort of asset, as a trade deal. And by John Bercow speaking his mind, and by the way, he is speaking for a lot of the British people, that is kind of upsetting people because they're thinking... But
Ian, you're missing the point, Ian. Ian, you said at the start of this conversation that John Bercow speaks for me. John Bercow isn't supposed to speak for you. John Bercow is supposed to be the speaker and the independent, neutral chairman of the great forum for debate in our nation, which, by the way, once Brexit's happened, will be sovereign and great again. So the point I'm making, Ian, is he should not be giving political opinions. Surely that's right.
Yes, I understand what you're saying, but
Good.
At the end of the day, he has spoken his mind, and he's spoken the mind of a lot of the British public.
Ian, I get that point. I get that point. And as a backbench Conservative or Labour, whatever he is these days, he could do so, but not as Speaker. And he cannot use the defence. He cannot, by the way, Ian, thank you for the call. He cannot use the defence that he's upholding the integrity and the values of Parliament when he allows tyrants from all over the world who he greases up to in the most extraordinary way. Your texts and tweets coming in texts. I have long felt that Speaker Bercow was getting too big for his boots. He is both arrogant and bombastic. He was out of order to criticise Trump, and he should go, and fast. And that's from Donald in Hampstead, not Donald in Washington. And there is a wonderful old... going back into ancient history, saying, I have neither eyes to see nor tongue to speak, except as this house wills. Bercow should heed those famous words, and that's from Neil, and that is traditionally what the Speaker of the House is supposed to do. Another text, it is so annoying when a political figure speaks on behalf of the entire people of Britain, isn't it? I hope Nigel senses the hypocrisy of that statement in relation to his post-Brexit behaviour. Reece and Leighton. Reece, you know, I honestly, I challenge anyone to tell me that Bercow is not a hypocrite for wanting Trump banned, but allowing all these tyrants from Kuwait and North Korea and Vietnam into this country. I wonder what Than in Wembley makes of this debate. Than, good evening. Should Bercow go?
Good evening, Mr. Trump. I feel that he shouldn't. Reason being is there's an element of freedom of speech that we're missing out. That's one point. I feel that he has a view and he shouldn't be getting bashed for it. Another thing is, I just want to point out the double standards. If you speak out against a guy in a suit, a character like Donald Trump, all of a sudden he gets bashed for it. But when it was someone else, a different figure with probably similar views, no one's saying anything. It's just double standards, and secondly, it's freedom of speech that we're missing out.
But I'm sorry, freedom of speech is why we have benches, government benches and opposition benches in that parliament, and slightly different than the one I'm in now. But the whole point is that freedom of speech and indeed parliamentary privilege is accorded to MPs, MEPs, members of chambers all over the place. It's not for the Speaker to give political opinion. Or do you think he should?
He should be allowed to speak his mind, but the debate or the decision shouldn't go by his way. He should be allowed to speak his mind, but the decision shouldn't be met because of his opinions. That's what
well, if we allow speakers of the House of Commons to speak their mind every single time that there is a debate and somebody with a differing view to the Speaker doesn't get called to speak, he or she, sitting in a chair, would be accused, actually, of terrible, terrible bias. It would, in fact, be a complete disaster for our centuries-old Parliament.
Do you suggest that he doesn't ever give opinions, just keep quiet and, like a referee or something, just sit on the sideline?
Yes, well done, well done. He's a referee. He's a neutral umpire. Use whatever sporting analogy you want. That is the point about the Speaker. He is there to facilitate debate within that forum that is known as Parliament, not to abuse his position, to devalue, you know, all those that have gone before him and what our democracy stands for. And it's not, you know, opinions are for the back benches or the front benches. They are most certainly not for the Speaker of the House of Commons. And I'm pleased that our constitutional expert earlier on in this show backed up that view. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, live exclusively here from Brussels on LBC. It is now 7:30, and it's time for the news with Rupert Bartier.
RAF fighter jets escorted a Pakistani passenger plane to Stansted Airport earlier. The airline says it was after authorities received what's described as a vague security threat through an anonymous phone call. MPs have voted against an amendment over when Parliament can vote on the final Brexit deal. It's after the government announced MPs and peers will have a say on the final agreement before it's considered by the European Parliament. And the Speaker of the House of Commons says he acted honestly and honourably by saying that Donald Trump shouldn't be allowed to address Parliament during his state visit to Britain. John Bercow is being accused of failing to remain neutral after making the comments yesterday. LBC weather. A mix of cloud, rain and frost into the evening, a low of 2 Celsius. Overcast tomorrow with rain in the east, sunshine in the west, a high of 8 degrees.
LBC Travel, good evening. I'm Anne-Marie Walsh. In Barking, the North Circular is blocked southbound at the Barking flyover. That's because a car has broken down. In Southwark, Union Street is closed both ways between Great Suffolk Street and Great Guildford Street. That's because of a fire in a building. In South Yorkshire, the M1 is slow northbound between junction 33 for Sheffield and 34 for Meadowhall. That's because of an accident. The outside lane is closed. And in the West Midlands, the M6 is queuing southbound towards junction 6 for the A38M, and that's after an accident earlier. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
Now, I can tell you the secrets of successful investors, but the golden rule is you have to act quickly. Now, you're obviously a decisive person, someone who stays ahead of the curve, someone who
could be drawn in by the time pressure of an investment scammer. At the Financial Conduct Authority, we're committed to keeping you safe. So if you've been offered an unsolicited investment opportunity, be a scam-smart investor and check the FCA warning list of firms to avoid at fca.org.uk/scamsmart.
You're the backbone of our business. Strong, reliable, plus you look great. And you're really well built.
Oh, cheers, Steve.
Not you, Terry.
The Renault Traffic with 4 years 0% APR, servicing, roadside assistance, up to 4 years warranty and 3 Watt Van Awards. Make it part of your team. Visit a Renault Pro Plus specialist dealer to find out more. Business users and participating dealers only. Minimum deposit of 20%. Renault Finance hire purchase. Register by 31st of March, subject to status. T's and C's apply. See renault.co.uk/offers.
Divorce. It threatens the things you've worked hard for in more ways than you can imagine. Your home, savings, pension, and most of all, your relationship with your children. Don't let divorce cost you any more than it has to. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordellcordell.co.uk. Office in central London. A partner men can count on.
This is a live update for UK businesses. From award-winning cider to fresh-line caught salmon, the UK is renowned for its quality produce. If you're in food and drink, it's time to take your next step by selling overseas. To get a taste for what's out there, search Exporting is Great.
The high-quality kitchen you've dreamed of at a price well within your budget. That's Room Sense.
That's Room Sense.
Right now, Room Sense is offering stunning kitchens at half price with free appliances worth over £1,000. See roomsense.co.uk.
Quality at a price you can afford. That's Room Sense.
Minimum spend applies.
Now, someone as decisive as you
could be drawn in by the time pressure of an investment scammer. Be a scam-smart investor. Check the FCA warning list before investing.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, the row over Speaker Bercow continues, but Parliament itself has been busy, indeed, as has the Scottish Parliament and the Welsh Assembly. Yes, you thought your vote in the referendum was the one that counted, but no. It is rumbling through assemblies and parliaments across the United Kingdom, and perhaps quite an important vote tonight, an amendment by Labour MP Chris Leslie that wanted to give Parliament an absolute veto over the final deal or no deal that the British government comes back with from this place in Brussels, and that was defeated by 326 votes to 293, but not by very many. And as I've said before on this show, and I will go on saying, do not trust our political class to put the result of that referendum into place. There are lots of them, loads of them, majority of them actually, who would like to dilute it or delay it in any way they possibly could. So these are good results tonight for those that want the referendum honoured, but goodness me, they're getting pretty close on some of these issues, and we should be worried. Now, I've been condemning Bercow, but it's not just me. Tory MP Crispin Blunt has said that Bercow does not speak for a majority in the House, and this is the reason why speakers should never express their opinions. Nadeem Zahawi MP has said he should think about his position. Others, like Alex Shelbrooke, Tory backbencher, has said his position was untenable. He'd engaged in grandstanding and student politics of the worst kind. But crucially, Lord Fowler, who holds the equivalent position in the House of Lords, has had quite a pop at John Bercow and said, how dare you speak for the entirety of Parliament when you haven't even consulted me? And Lord Fowler says he's open-minded and he thinks it would be better if speakers of either house did not make such opinions known to the outside world. So there are people, it's not just me, there are people having a bit of a go at this guy, and your Facebook messages are coming in. Leslie Cox says Bercow has infringed his position of Speaker. He is meant to be neutral. He should resign. Alexandra O'Hara says, watching you on my smartphone, best hour of the day, rock and roll, Nigel, thank you. Susan Mary Peters says Bercow should apologise and let's all move on with a kiss. Well, do you know what? He had the chance today, Susan. He had the chance to apologise, and he absolutely refused to do it. He reinforced the views that he'd given the day before, which possibly is why one of his biggest supporters today is Jeremy Corbyn, who says he backs the Speaker's stance, and he hit out at Trump's misogyny and his racism and his behaviour over international law. Well, it's good to know that he's got some supporters there. Paul Bolton tells me on Facebook, I think it's right The Speaker has broken a rule of impartiality. He should step down now. Most of you are agreeing with me. I wonder what Jonathan from is it Ammanford, Jonathan? Where do you live, Jonathan?
Yeah, not far from Carmarthen in West Wales.
Right, OK, very good. Jonathan, should this... And by the way, the Welsh Assembly's been debating Article 50 today, as I said to you. But I mean, do you expect our Speaker to be a neutral figure or not?
Absolutely, yes. I think it's, well, it's disappointing, I think. You know, it seems to be a bit of a theme, Nigel, you know, these people are taking on the role of speaking for the rest of us. I heard in the news earlier that, you know, someone saying that, oh, you know, if Trump comes, there'll be, you know, 2 million people on the streets. And I was thinking to myself, well, that means there's 60 million people not going to be in the streets. You know, just because they are the ones that are going to be demonstrating. They're going to be people like myself who geographically live too far away or in work and hold jobs and live in the real world who are not going to be there demonstrating, you know, counter to them.
Are you suggesting that demonstrators don't have jobs?
To be honest, obviously some of them do. But from what I've seen, a lot of them I think don't. I think they're a bit of a, you know, rent-a-rabble.
Do you really? Gosh, if I said that, it would cause a hell of a stir, wouldn't it? No, I agree with you. I see the same faces on these demonstrations all over the place.
I mean, say, Nigel, I think the government's missing a huge opportunity here. I'm from West Wales and always have considered myself Welsh before British or anything else. The whole Brexit thing, I think, has really bound people from Scotland, Ireland, Wales, despite what we hear from politicians in Scotland, into being proud to be British, and instead of, you know, encompassing that and using that to build a better country, it seems that the government is just throwing that opportunity away. And before we know it, we'll be back to, you know, England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, instead of, you know, being proud to be British as well.
Yeah, Jonathan, I agree with that, and I have always regarded myself as British before I've regarded myself as English. And I have felt, actually, that far from weakening the union, I think actually Brexit has, for the moment, strengthened the union. Certainly Scottish nationalism is now, or Scottish separation, now I think is a bit of a no-no. I agree, Jonathan, but I also agree that nettle must be grasped. But we're not debating Brexit tonight, Jonathan. You're very naughty. But thank you for your call. I'm talking about Bercow. I think he's overstepped the mark outrageously. I think he's brought the House of Commons and the position of Speaker. Effectively, he's brought that job into disrepute, in my view. I think he should go, and quickly. But maybe he said that because he's got himself a job with a Blairite think tank on a massive salary. Maybe this is his way out. I don't know. Either way, the neutrality of the Speaker, I think it's really important. I wonder what Will in Evesham thinks of that proposition.
Hello, good evening, Nigel. I think you're on home ground tonight. I think hypocrisy must be like a home soil for you. Really, I mean, you think Bercow really just standing up for principles, really, I think, you know, which is one of his roles. I mean, I think, you know, for you to be attacking him, and less than 3 weeks ago, you were listing the MPs who voted against the Brexit vote, and this in light of Joe Cox's murder, you know, and you're talking about, you know, upholding principles, hypocrisy, don't you think?
I don't understand the point at all. I mean, it's, great.
I'll be very straightforward with you. I mean, you know, when you've got people like Ken Clark and standing up for their conscience and saying this is what I believe in, and then you're highlighting these individual MPs, saying these are the MPs who voted against Brexit, the vote, and they're voting against somehow the referendum, when actually they're doing exactly what they should be doing as MPs, voting with their conscience. And so,
I get the point, Will, about conscience. I get the point about conscience. And normally, you know, that's how MPs do vote. But isn't it different when you've actually subcontracted that decision to the people of this country? You've done so through the Commons by a majority of 6-1 to say, right, you decide, you get on with it, and hang on, I haven't finished yet. And then the government sends a leaflet out saying, we will abide by what you say. You then bring it back to Parliament and people contradict it.
Well, hang on, Nigel, Again, we're talking about the principle here, aren't we? The principle here,
yeah.
Do we have a democracy, and do we have a representative democracy where MPs are representing us? What's that phrase you like to use? Sovereignty. The Parliament is sovereign.
Sovereignty of the people. Sovereignty of the people, Will.
I see you're changing it now.
No, sovereignty of the people. Will.
Sovereign, Nigel.
No, Parliament is transitory. No, Will. Let me tell you what happens, mate. What happens is once every 5 years, we lend people authority to sit on our behalf in Parliament, and we judge them. It isn't theirs. The sovereignty of this country is not theirs to give away, it's ours. Right. Ours is the sovereignty. We lend it to them, and what they did, Will, was to give away. Anyway, Will, I'm going to bring you back to the question. Do you think Speaker Bercow was right to say what he said?
Absolutely. He spoke at the principles. Let me ask you a different question. Hitler was elected in the early 30s.
No, Will. Will. It's great fun, and if it was a Brexit debate, we'd have a lot of fun with this, but it's not a Brexit debate. I'm talking about the hugely inappropriate behaviour of John Bercow yesterday. Will, listeners, disagrees with me. He thinks speakers should be openly and overtly political. It would be a catastrophe. The House of Commons would be meaningless. You couldn't play cricket, could you? If you thought the umpire was supporting one side or the other, it simply wouldn't and couldn't work. That's what I think. I wonder what Naeem in Finchley thinks. Naeem, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel. I think you're making a mountain out of a molehill here, mate. I know you don't like this guy, but you're using this as a platform to have a pop at him. I mean, all he said is something that you fundamentally disagree with. He's your mate. Obviously, Donald's your mate across the pond. This guy...
That's irrelevant.
Well, it is relevant.
It's irrelevant.
You've got a platform at the moment that you're using, and you're milking it to discredit someone
hang on.
who's been elected by our parliamentarians. Hang on, it's down to the parliamentarians to decide, not you. You can't use it as a platform to decide who sits in that chair. No, if you've got a issue, you go to your MP and say, you know what, I don't like what this Bercow said, and I want you to, get rid of him. Go through the proper channels. If you respect the old office of this John Bercow, you respect the office, and we should follow etiquette. Then that applies to you as well, Nigel.
Well, does he respect the office?
Well, does the President of the United States respect the law? He's broken the law. He's a criminal, isn't he, Donald Trump? Because he's Muslim ban, hasn't he? He's put a Muslim ban.
So the North Koreans come round for tea, and that's all hunky dory. That's great. And the Vietnamese and the Emir of Kuwait.
Why did you not protest about it? Why are you waking up now?
I do.
You
Do you know, Naeem? I think I've been the most consistent. I've been the most consistent opponent. Yes, I've protested against Saudi Arabia, and I protest against all forms of hypocrisy. But I don't think, Naeem, you clearly don't seem to understand how our Parliament is supposed to work, how it's worked. Going back to the 13th century, we had our constitutional expert, Craig, on at the beginning of this programme, who said he cannot think of any precedent in the history of our Parliament where a speaker has so overstepped the mark. And listen, Naeem, you rang up for a row. It was great fun. You're listening exclusively to Nigel Farage here on LBC in Brussels. It's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
As the Housing White Paper is finally unveiled, do you think the government has the right ideas and the desire to genuinely tackle the housing crisis?
Clive Bull on LBC.
What if someone else did all the donkey work to find out if you had PPI for free? Well, that's exactly what we do here at the Claims Guys. Just text EASY to 60777 and we'll do the digging to discover if you ever had PPI added to one of your accounts. After that, you can pursue the claim yourself or ask us to do it for you. It's your choice. But if you don't text EASY to 60777, you'll never know. The Claims Guys, the PPI people.
The Claims Guys. Let's not go home yet, Wilbur. There's a new film out with penguins in. Change of plans. You can control your heating from your phone wherever you are with Hive Active Heating. It's just £9 a month exclusive to British Gas customers, and you won't pay anything up front. You'll never need to heat an empty home or come back to a cold one again. Shh, Wilbur, the film's starting. Control your heating from your phone for just £9 a month. Search British Gas Hive. Conditions, exclusions and cancellation charges apply.
A big night out, a lumpy bed. There are so many things that can keep us awake. But if you can't sleep because you're worried about paying the bills, we can help. Capitalise provides free, impartial and confidential face-to-face support to help people in trouble manage their debt. Find out more at capitalise.org.uk.
This WeBuyAnyCar.com advert comes with a 5-star rating. 5 stars? I'm happy with that. No, it's not down to my captivating personality and witty presenting style. WeBuyAnyCar.com has a very nice 5-star review on Trustpilot. Thanks, guys. You're too kind. Stop it. If you're happy with that, sell your car the 5-star way. Enter your reg number now at WeBuyAnyCar.com. Admin fee may apply. For more information, see WeBuyAnyCar.com/info.
On the 25th of October 2016, the government announced Heathrow as its preferred scheme for new airport capacity in the southeast. A national consultation is now underway to discuss what happens next. Go online to find out more. More about what expansion at Heathrow Airport may mean for the United Kingdom as a whole. And more about what it could mean for your own region. And quite simply, to have your say. Search Heathrow Airport expansion.
Introducing QuickBooks Connect, the big event to grow your small business on March the 7th at Tobacco Dock. Hear the stories of big-name entrepreneurs like business magnate Lord Sugar, small business guru Mary Portas, and many more. Connect with industry experts and network with peers. Learn practical skills during a full day of workshops, like how to find new customers using social media. Find out more at quickbooks.co.uk/grow. Register now for only £48 with promo code GROW.
The Nigel Farage Show. Text 84850.
An unrepentant John Bercow today stands by his comments yesterday that the President of the United States should not be able to address the Houses of Parliament inside the Palace of Westminster. He says that they're against racism and homophobia and all the rest of it, despite the fact he's invited tyrants, crawled to them from all over the world. And I'm saying he's overstepped the mark, and it's time he went. It would appear that some of the callers don't get this question because they're arguing about whether they like Donald Trump or not. And I'm trying to argue, folks, this is not about your view of Donald Trump. It's about whether you think the Speaker of the House of Commons should be neutral. And all right, you could say to me, but the Speaker must uphold our values. And if Mr. Trump, for argument's sake, was breaching our values, maybe the Speaker would be right in saying he couldn't come. But that doesn't work, does it? When you've crawled up to the Emir of Kuwait and you've invited the North Koreans into your apartment for tea. It just doesn't work. That's my view. I wonder what Richard in Bracknell thinks. Richard, good evening.
Hi, good evening. My view is that the only way your argument actually works is by confusing a number of different things, which is what you tend to do with most subjects.
How am I confusing things, Richard? I'm trying to simplify, mate.
All these tyrants that you mention have not spoken at Westminster Hall. That's the first.
Oh, really?
No, they haven't.
Really? Well, they've been welcomed. They've been welcomed into the Palace of Westminster.
But that is completely different than being able to speak at Westminster Hall. And
you can speak in.
His constitutional duty is he is one of the key holders to decide who can speak and who can't speak. He didn't speak for anybody else. He only spoke for himself. And he said that if he was asked, he would say it was not a good idea. So that's completely two separate arguments here.
Well, if that was the case, that'd be fine. But he spoke on behalf of Parliament. He didn't even consult Lord Fowler from the House of Lords, did he?
There are three key holders, and he said that all three must agree. And he said, because of the reasons that he stated, he would not agree to it. So therefore, it wouldn't happen. So
do you think his comments...
Anybody else apart from himself.
Do you think his insinuations from the chair in the House of Commons that the US president is racist and sexist and against prejudice and prejudiced against minorities, do you think that was appropriate?
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. Because we live in a parliamentary democracy. He is the representative for the MPs, and the House of Commons is his constituency. He is not a delegate.
So you would be happy if we politicised the role of Speaker, yeah?
Not at all. What we've got is a situation where he has got a role, and he's done exactly what his role entitles him to do.
But
now, your
does his role?
Expert, I've got no respect for because I've been watching this all day long, and every single constitutional expert that I've listened to has said this is very nuanced. But your constitutional expert, which is very odd because people like yourself tell us that we shouldn't be listening to experts.
We should be sceptical, absolutely, and so you are, Richard. You're deeply sceptical, which is good.
Let me carry on now. Why are you after criticising Europe for so long? Why does the views of the people of Poland matter in this debate?
Well, I just think it's rather interesting, don't you? I just think it's rather interesting. That is rather interesting, don't you? That what is happening across the Western world is that people who believe in free movement and open borders and are wholly unconcerned by unchecked Islamic terrorists coming into our countries, they may be represented in chambers at the moment by lots of politicians, but they're losing. And there is a massive, massive shift of public opinion with people saying, we've got to get real here.
What's got to do with this debate?
It's because there is a massive seismic shift, Richard, happening across the entire Western world. Trump, do you know, right now, Trump enjoys the optimism index at its 12-year high. There is a majority of the American people think that this temporary restriction to work out the vetting rules is correct. And what I'm saying to you, Richard, is whether it's America or the UK or Poland, this is how people are feeling. But that's a separate debate. I could argue that right now with you, but I wouldn't do it if I was Speaker of the House of Commons, Richard. And that's the point I keep trying to make, and some of you don't
he has done
want to agree with that.
He's constitutionally supposed to do. Have a think about this.
No.
You've got somebody who's going to come into our Parliament. Have you heard what he said about Princess Diana on the Howard Stern show? And you think that's appropriate?
He is. Do you know what, Richard? You may loathe him, but he's the most powerful man in the world, and he loves our country, and we should be very, very happy about that.
Do you think that is appropriate? Because we both know what he said.
I don't think Tony Blair taking us to war was appropriate. I think there are many things people do that are inappropriate, but this debate is not about Donald Trump, much as you would like it to be. You've had your go. I wonder what Paul in Newmarket thinks.
Well, I think your previous caller it fails to ignore the position of John Bercow and how irresponsible and reckless that his words will be received across the pond. I mean, listen, my position is clear. It's an absolute disgrace. A lot of the callers don't seem to get that it's not his place is stating the obvious, to put it mildly. It's not about whether you like Trump or not. It's interesting. The same people who called in who don't get it, about whether it's about whether you like Trump or not also don't like him. Because these people aren't capable of critical thinking. Listen, John Bercow epitomizes the hubris and self-centered far-left liberal establishment hatred of Donald Trump, and yet again ignores the interests and treats with contempt the British people who voted out of the EU and led the way with the national populist movement that Trump also represents, and Bercow knows this fine well, yet he decides to speak for the British people directly or indirectly. Same attitude, same self-centeredness. We have a much valued ally at the minute in Donald Trump, and this guy just wants to throw a spanner in the works like they want to do incessantly because they're little babies. He should go out and join one of the socially engineered, basement-dwelling, virtual signaling student snowflakes march in London or Brighton or wherever it is. If he wants his opinion, why doesn't he express it there and get his little no Trump, no KKK, no fascist USA and join all the virtual signaling?
Paul, I sense, whichever local pub you drink in Newmarket, they clearly, no doubt the punters get their money's worth. When you're in there, you've got it off your chest beautifully, and I have to say I'm kind of with that, because it is this irrational hatred and fear of Trump. When you actually look, in policy terms, what he's trying to do, none of it is that shocking. Paul, thank you very much indeed. Facebook messages, Frank Jennings says, it's a shocking insult. to the leader of our best ally. Shocking. Mark Gilman says, get him out. Tom Underwood says, knighted, he should be locked up. Nicky Buckthorpe says, Bercow should be sacked, along with Diane Abbott. Yeah, they're not related, Nicky. I mean, a lot of people would agree with that, but they're not directly related. Text, Nigel Farage, be careful of blindly defending Trump. He's just getting started. Wait until he meets Putin and see what happens in Israel. People remember those who back the bad guy. Steve in London. Well, Steve, you know, I mean, this bloke is so far away from being a warmonger, it's not true. Tex, what Bercow has done is utterly deplorable. He clearly won't resign. However, if enough people lobby their Conservative MPs, they could move a vote of no confidence in John Bercow. Well, that is, of course, a pretty fair point. I have to say, I've been really surprised, actually, by some of the arguments and some of the debates that have been made this evening. I have to say, my final thought is this, that I'm actually quite alarmed that so many people can ring in and can say to me, suggest to me, that what Bercow did is fine, because it's quite right that he should be able to speak his mind. It's all about freedom of speech. No, it isn't. He gave up that right of free speech to become the Speaker of the House of Commons, one of the most revered positions in any democracy in the world. And the fact that so many people ring in and don't seem to agree with that, I find alarming. And I genuinely think we need to be teaching people about the British Constitution, about Parliament, about the way these things work. Coming up at 10 o'clock, it's Ian Collins. But up next in London, it's Clive Bull.
Nigel, thank you. And lots to talk about after the news. We're going to look at housing. Finally, the government's ideas for tackling